Can you confirm whether you can see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let us start now. So if you remember, in the last class, we discussed about mainly about the cam mechanism, that how the valve actuation takes place. What are the different mechanisms through which the valve's actuation takes place, in which we have learned about two things or two mechanisms. One is the push rod mechanism and another is overhead cam mechanism. Overhead cam mechanism is the latest technology which is used in most of the passenger cars. And then we also learn about some of the terminology of the internal combustion engine, like what is uh, top dead center, bottom dead center, bore diameter, stroke length, swept volume, clearance volume, total volume. So these are the things we have covered. So with that information, now let us move to the next part. So till now we mainly discussed about what are the different engine parts, okay, how they works. Now let us go a little bit more about the operating condition of the engine. But before going on, what are the different kinds of the engine? Because in during the or one or last two classes, I have used some of the terminology that even though I have not covered it. So it's better to define right now in one or two classes. So first of all, let us discuss about the engine classifications. There are a different kind, or we can classify the engine based on the several parameters. Let us, for example, on the basis of the application of the engine, we may say that it some of the engine can be used for automobiles or truck, or you can say locomotive or marine engine. So it depends upon the where we are using the engine, and based on that it can be classified. Then based on the engine design, what we can say about the engine design? Based on the design, we may divide the engine into the reciprocating engine. Further, the reciprocating engine can be divided into the based on the arrangement of the cylinders. Okay, arrangement of the cylinders is means in multi-cylinder engine where we have a more than one cylinder. So all the cylinders, it can be arranged in one cycle. Sorry, in one line. That is we called inline engine design. Or sometimes if it is a most of the your two-cylinder engine or four-cylinder engine is inline cylinder arrangement. But there is some kind of the engine or some engine has even 6-cylinder or even it has 8-cylinder. We cannot arrange so many cylinders in one line. Then the packaging of the engine is going to be too big. So such where the number of cylinder is higher, then mainly the if you see we can find it out, the cylinders are arranged in a V manner. Okay, so we can say it as a V arrangement. Inline cylinders, V cylinders, V arrangement. There is a rotary kind of the engine also. Then again we can go in the further details. Then we can also divide the engine based on the working cycle. Okay, in working cycle, what we can say that it may be the 4-stroke engine or it is a 2-stroke engine, depending upon what kind, what is the number of the cycles. In order, how many strokes it can take in order to complete one cycle. So based on that, we can say it is a 4-stroke cycle, whether it is a 4-stroke cycle or it's a 2-stroke cycle. Based on the fuel, yes, depending upon what kind of the fuel you are using in the engine, we can also divide on the basis of that, whether it is a gasoline engine or with a petrol engine, so diesel engine. These are the two mainly you are seeing in your daily life. But there is a also different kind of the fuels that is being used in the internal combustion engine, like CNG. Apart from the uh, gasoline and the diesel, CNG is most commonly used fuel as of now in India or even in the all over the world. Compressed natural gas, CNG. Then we have there's so many alternative fuels is also there, like alcohol. A small fraction of the alcohol right now it is being used in India also. Then there are futuristic kind of the, not futuristic kind of the things is that, but there is a fuel, hydrogen, dimethyl ether, biodiesel. So there are so many fuels, and that depending upon the what kind of the fuel you are using, based on that we can also classify the engine. Next thing it is coming about methods of mixture formation. We already know that in order to burn the fuel, we need a oxidizer. And in the internal combustion engine, in the IC engine, we use air as an oxidizer. So the air and the fuel has to be mixed in a proportional amount in order to combust. So how it mixture is taking place? Based on that, we can also classify the engine. Whether the mixing of fuel and air, is it taking place in the intake manifold itself? And then it is going into the combustion chamber? Or whether the mixing of fuel and air is taking place inside the combustion chamber itself? Okay. What kind of the technology you are using in order to inject the fuel? When we will go into much details, we will find it out there are different kind of the fuel injection technology also there. So depending upon how the mixing of the fuel and air is taking place, where it is taking place, based on that we can also classify the engine. Another way, the methods of ignition. We obviously it needs some kind of the energy to combust the air and fuel mixture. So what kind of the ignition methodology you are using? If you are using a spark, then it is called a spark ignition engine. Or if you are compressing the fuel and air mixture to such an extent that it auto ignites, then we call it compression ignition engine. So based on that, we can also classify the engine. Then combustion chamber design. Okay. It is an open combustion chamber, or the combustion chamber is divided into the two parts. Then methods of the load control. Load control, it means whether you are controlling the fuel and air mixture, or you are controlling only the amount of the fuel. Which one you are directly controlling? Which parameter, either fuel and air or mixture of fuel and air, you have to control in order to produce the, or in order to control the load. Then what kind of the cooling methodology is there? because your device needs some kind of the cooling in order to reject the extra heat. Otherwise, it is going to be thermal damage. So mainly we have a two kind of the cooling system as far as the IC engine is concerned, whether it is an air cooled engine or it is a water cooled engine. So the depending upon the so many parameters, okay, all these parameters, we can classify the engine. Here, obviously, we are going to study more details about the working cycle. We are also going to discuss about the mixture formation methodology or ignition or load control methodology, cooling methodology. Let us see. Right now we cannot confirm that whether we are going to cover it here or not. Depending upon the time, we will decide it. So this is the way that we can divide the engine. Okay, more or less you have heard all this kind of the terminology. I'm hoping that. So now let us, our objective in this class to understand the difference or understands the what is the what is the meaning of 4-stroke engine, 2-stroke engine, spark ignition 4-stroke ignition engine, or compression ignition 4-stroke ignition 4-stroke engine. So these are the four methodology or four terminology we are going to understand in this class. That is what we will try right now. So 4-strokes engine. Several times I have used this terminology, 4-stroke engine. Whenever, in fact, I have tried also a little bit to explain to you also. Once again, let us see. So most of the, as of now, okay, nowadays, most of the reciprocating engine is a 4-stroke engine. 4-stroke, it means it requires the 4-stroke of the piston. 4-stroke of the piston is required to complete one cycle or to produce one power stroke. Okay. In 4-stroke, we require 4-stroke of the piston or 2 revolution of the crankshaft in order to complete one cycle or in order to produce one power stroke. That kind of the engine is called 4-stroke engine. So now, what are the different strokes? What is the naming of the 4-strokes? So the one we call it intake stroke, compression stroke, power stroke or expansion stroke, and then we have an exhaust stroke. Now, if you can see here, these are the valves. Okay, this is our intake valve or intake manifold. Here we have exhaust manifold. So when the piston in the intake stroke, the piston moves down from the top dead center to the bottom dead center. In that process, when the piston moves from top dead center to the bottom dead center during the intake stroke, at that time the intake valve is in open condition and the fresh mixture of fuel and air or only air comes into the combustion chamber. So that is the 1-stroke where the piston is moving from top dead center to the bottom dead center. At that time the intake valve will be in the open conditions. The fresh mixtures of the fuel and air will come into the combustion chamber. The piston will reach at the bottom dead center. Then what will happen? There will be compression stroke. During the compression stroke, both valves, intake valve and the exhaust valve, will be in the closed position. And then the piston will move from the bottom dead center to the top dead center. Then what will happen that the content inside the combustion chamber, either it will be in mixture of fuel and air or it is air only, it's going to be compressed and its pressure and temperature is going to be increased. So that is our compression stroke. So in compression stroke, both valves are in closed positions. Piston moves from the top, from the BDC, that is bottom dead center, to the top dead center, that is TDC. When the piston will reach at the top dead center, so what will happen? There will be a complete revolution of the crankshaft. So in one revolution of the crankshaft, there is only two stroke has been completed. One is the intake stroke, another is the compression stroke. Towards the end of compression stroke, okay, towards the end of the compression stroke, the combustion is going to be takes place. That combustion maybe takes place because with the help of the external source of energy or the compression pressure and temperature is self-sufficient to ignite the mixture. So depending upon whatever the way, right now we are not going to concern right now. Only we are concerned about that towards the end of the compression stroke, the mixture is going to be combust and the pressure and temperature inside the combustion chamber is going to be very high. And it will push the piston further down. That is called our power stroke or the expansion stroke, in which the piston is moving down from the top dead center to the bottom dead center. Both valves are in closed position. Towards the end of the expansion stroke, the exhaust valve is going to be open. Okay, and the whatever the combustion products inside the combustion chamber, it is going to be flash out from the chamber to the atmosphere. Some of the portion of the combustion product will be flash out because of the pressure difference between the combustion chamber and the exhaust manifold, and the remaining product will be expelled out with the action of the piston. In that exhaust stroke, piston will move from the bottom dead center to the top dead center. Then again, exhaust valve will be closed, intake valve will be opened, and piston will move from top dead center to the bottom dead center, and then again this stroke is going to be repeat. So in 4-stroke engine, we have an intake stroke, compression stroke, power stroke, exhaust stroke. It needs 4 strokes of the piston to complete one cycle. All the 4 process comprises one cycle. In one cycle, we have a 2 rotation of the crankshaft, 4 stroke of the piston. I hope it has to be very clear that in 4-stroke engine, one cycle requires 2 revolution of the crankshaft or the 4 stroke of the piston. Okay, so do you have any question here? Anyone? No? Okay, so if there is no question, let us move to the here right now what we are going to discuss about in the 4-stroke engine. Again, we have a 2 kind of the engine. It is a spark ignition engine or it is a compression ignition engine. So right now, let us discuss about the spark ignition engine, about the working principle of the spark ignition engine, how it happens. It is a 4-stroke spark ignition engine. Okay, intentionally I have removed the meaning of what is representing here 1, 2, 3, 4, all these things. And I would like that you can identify the parts of the engine. Okay, so all of you please come forward and participate and tell me what is representing 1.
Cam.
Cam. Okay. Second,
Spark plug.
a spark plug. Very good. Third,
Camshaft.
cam. You told
Camshaft.
something else. Camshaft. Cam. Okay. So what is the difference between 1 and 3?
One guides the intake valve and other guides the exhaust valve.
Which guides the intake valve?
Third.
Third. Very good. What is fourth? What is fourth?
Sir, fuel injector.
Fuel injector. Absolutely correct. Fifth,
Intake valve.
intake valve. Sixth,
Exhaust valve.
very good. 7,
Combustion chamber.
what is?
Combustion chamber.
Combustion chamber. Very good. 8,
Piston.
Piston.
piston. 9,
Liner.
liner. Very good. 10,
Connecting rod.
connecting rod. 11,
Crankshaft.
crankshaft. Wow, that's really very good. It means whatever we have done this exercise from last 2-3 classes, I think it has been success. Very good. Now let us see in the spark ignition engine. Okay. Only thing is that here those students who have identified that it is fuel injector, it's really very good. Now some of you have a car at your home, or some of you have a two-wheeler. You have also experienced that how to drive two-wheeler and four-wheeler. Those who are in the campus right now, they cannot do anything. But for those who are at the home, or those who are going to the home, whenever they are going to get the experience, I would request all of you to at least just open the bonnet of your car, or whenever the situations inside the campus improves, please visit the IC engine lab, and I will show you also in the lab itself that once in the spark ignition engine, these are the parts of the engine. So that's really very good. I remember that in the first class when I asked that please tell me the name of some of the parts of the engine. Okay, at that time at least I got only the few names of the parts of the engine, but right now almost everything you have identified. So that's really very good. So what happens now? See, the things is like that. This pipe, okay, this is slightly extended also. This exhaust pipe is also extended, and this whole the pipeline in a simple way I can say it is called intake manifold, through which the air comes from the atmosphere to the into the combustion chamber. So up to the intake valve here we call it intake manifold, and similarly the pipeline or the through which the exhaust goes out from the combustion chamber to the atmosphere. That part is called exhaust manifold. Okay. In the intake manifold, if you look very carefully, and if your engine has such kind of the device or such kind of the fuel injection technology that it uses a injector, okay, it's an electronic injector that it inject the fuel in the intake manifold itself. Okay, right now I'm not using that terms, but or we can say it when you are using electronic injector to inject the fuel into the intake manifold. Such kind of the device is called port fuel injection, PFI, port fuel injection, PFI. Sometimes you can see MPFI, multi-port fuel injection system. Okay, all these are the same in which the fuel injection is taking place with the help of electronic injector and the fuel injection is taking place into the intake manifold. So it is PFI, port fuel injection system. All the passenger cars, okay, almost all the passenger cars, at least we can say this is statement true for the Maruti, okay, which uses the PFI. Some of the engines, even right now in India, they have injector not in the manifold, but it is in the cylinder head, okay, and the fuel is injected directly inside the combustion chamber. And I'm talking about a spark ignition engine. So let us not go right now in such details, okay, but nomenclature, the naming of that technology in which you inject the gasoline directly into the combustion chamber, that kind of the fuel technology is called gasoline direct injection, GDI. I would say please find it out which model or which company or which model of the company have a GDI fuel technology or which one has a MPFI fuel injection technology. Most of the passenger cars has MPFI. As far as in India is concerned, almost more than 90-95% even we can say MPFI, all the spark ignition engine. Some of the engine we have from the, we can say it is a Ford or BMW. Some of these kind of the engines has a GDI technology also. So let us be concerned about the port fuel injection system here itself, that in the intake manifold we have an injector through which we inject the fuel into the intake manifold. So that's here. Since it is a spark ignition engine, we have a one in the intake manifold. We have a one throttle here. Sorry. It's a throttle here, throttle plate in the intake manifold. And your accelerator is directly connected to the throttle. This throttle can move from closed position or zero position, or you can say almost closed positions to the 90 degree. Once you take the full throttle, the throttle plate is going to rotate by 90 degree, and in that conditions your intake valve is completely opened. When there is if you're at zero accelerator, if you're not pressing the accelerator at that times, the throttle plate is almost closed the intake flow, intake manifold, almost closed. Let me tell you, I'm saying almost closed. But even if in the idling condition or when you are starting the engine, at that time you are not pressing the accelerator, but your engine starts. It means the air is coming into the combustion chamber, or air and fuel is coming into the combustion chamber. If it is going to be completely closed, your engine is not going to be start. So the by default, even if you are not pressing the accelerator, it is in open condition. How much it is going to be open, it depends upon the several parameters. Okay, but by default, it is in open condition. And then from there, as per your requirement, how much you are pressing the accelerator, it is going to be open. So once it is going to be open, so what throttle does, throttle is ultimately controlling the amount of the air that is going inside the combustion chamber. Okay, so that's the things. And then so during the intake stroke, what happens in the spark ignition engine during the intake stroke, or let me introduce one things also here. Right now we have studied about how these valves are actuated. Okay, what are the mechanism through which the valves are actuated, when it is going to, how it is going to be open, but when it is going to be open, that we have not covered till now, and that is called valve timing diagram. And some of your friends have even asked the questions related to the valve timing diagram, that we are also going to cover. But let me tell you here that even the intake valve opens even before a start of the your intake stroke. So when the exhaust stroke is about to close or about to complete, at that time itself the intake valve opens. Why it is opens, we will discuss in the valve timing diagram. Here just accept my statement that even in the intake valve opens even before the intake stroke, slightly before. So when the piston is moving during the intake stroke, it's moving from the top dead center to the bottom dead center. To the bottom dead center. At that time, your intake valve opens, okay, or even before it, the intake valve opens, and here it is a fuel and air comes into the combustion chamber. Now you will realize that whenever previously I was saying about the intake stroke, I was always using the term that during the intake stroke, it is a mixture of fuel and air or the air only. So why I was using these two terminology? It is because one is fuel and air. It is true for the spark ignition engine, and it is only air is going to come for the compression ignition engine. And that's why I was using the both terminology or both things. But here in the spark ignition engine, during the intake stroke, it is a mixture of fuel and air that will come into the combustion chamber. At that time, your intake valve opens. Okay. Now, when fuel is going to be injected, it is also a input parameter. You can optimize it. You can inject the fuel. Let's suppose it is a 720 in one cycle. Okay, you have almost around 600, you can say more than 600 crank angle duration in which at any time you can inject the fuel. Why I'm saying 600? Because during the intake stroke it is a 180 crank angle. Okay, so even during the intake stroke, the fuel injection can take place. But if you are going to delay fuel injection too much, then what will happen? The required amount of the fuel, it cannot be injected. and then before that the intake valve is going to be closed, and therefore I am subtracting some of the crank angle. So we not even the 600, we can say even up to the 650-degree crank angle. So much durations you have whenever you can inject. So if you are injecting the fuel, even if valve is closed, the fuel will be remain in the intake valve. When intake valve will be open during the intake stroke, then it will mix with the air and the fuel and mixture is going to come inside the combustion chamber. Or you can inject the fuel during the intake stroke itself. So the fuel is not going to be remain or stay in the main intake manifold. As soon as it's going to be injected, it will simultaneously it will come in with the air, it will come into the combustion chamber. So it is a optimization parameter. When you are going to be inject, how that is a injection part, that is a optimization parameter. You have to optimize it, the timing of the fuel injection. In any case, during the intake stroke, it is a mixture of fuel and air will come if your spark ignition engine has a port fuel technology. Okay. So yes, so that's now the piston is moving from BDC to the, sorry, from the TDC to the BDC.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep.
Sir, from where you are considering the crank angle, crankshaft angle?
Let us assume it is a, I'm considering 0 at the beginning of the crankshaft, at the beginning of intake stroke. So the reference point I'm taking at the TDC when the intake stroke is going to be start.
Sir, so when will the fuel will be injected? That
Yeah.
angle.
So that's I told you, it is a optimization parameter. You have to optimize it. When do you want to inject? What should be the fuel injection timing? Right now I'm just telling you that you have a span of 600, around approximately 650-degree crank angle. There is total 720-degree crank angle in one cycle. And here I am saying you have a flexibility of injecting the fuel anytime between in the duration of 600, approximately 650-degree crank angle. It is just approximated crank angle I am saying. When the fuel injection, what would be the fuel injection timing? That you have to decide. On that it has to be decided. It depends upon the several parameters. Whether it is a liquid fuel or the gaseous fuel, it has a certain effect on the combustion parameter. In general, I can tell you the thumb rule for the gasoline. When it is injected in the beginning of exhaust stroke. But it is not, even I should not make such kind of the statement. But it covers the exhaust stroke and the part of the intake stroke when you are going to start the fuel injection. It is a optimization parameter. You have to optimize it in order to get the best performance and the lower emission of your engine. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So that is a fuel and air mixtures that is coming inside the combustion chamber. Then once the piston will reach at the bottom dead center, it means the crankshaft has rotated to 180 degree. Then again the piston will move from the BDC to the top dead center. Then what happens? Even when piston is moving from the bottom dead center to the top dead center, your valve is not going to be closed when the piston will reach at the BDC. it will be remain open for the certain period of the time. Why it is going to be open, remain open, that right now we are not going to discuss. Just hold it right now, that discussion. And accept my statement that your intake valve is not going to be closed even though the compression stroke that is considered from the when piston will move from the BDC to the top dead center. Your intake valve will be remain open, and it remains open around from BDC to around 40-degree crank angle, we can say. It remains in open condition and then it closed. So in the compression stroke, the intake valves is not going to be immediately closed as soon as the piston is moving from the bottom dead center to the top dead center. It remain opens for certain period of the crank angle, and then the intake valve is going to be closed. And the mixture that is inside the combustion chamber is going to be compressed during the compression stroke, in which the piston is moving from the BDC to TDC. Now, when the piston is about to reach the bottom, about to reach at the top dead center or towards the end of compression stroke, we have a spark plug. A spark is created. Now we need to understand the mechanism of how the spark is created. That is the separate things. We will discuss separately that how the spark system, what is the spark ignition, how the spark systems works. Here we need to consider that towards the end of compression stroke, a spark is created. And since the spark is created for a short duration, and that ignites the fuel and air mixture, and then it is a self-sufficient or it's a self-propagated flame is going to be developed, and it is going to travel or propagate across the combustion chamber to consume all the air fuel mixture. When the combustion starts, at that time, what happens that the pressure inside the combustion chamber and the temperature is going to be increased rapidly, and it is going to push the piston downwards, and then your combustion then your power stroke, expansion stroke is going to be takes place when the pistons moves from the top dead center to the bottom dead center, and that is our useful power stroke. When piston is about to reach at the bottom dead center, even before that, the exhaust valve is going to be open. So it's not like that exhaust valve will be open once the piston will reach at the bottom dead center in the power stroke. What I'm making in a statement here, that exhaust valve will be open even before the piston will reach at the bottom dead center. Your exhaust valve will be open. So at the time of the exhaust valve open, the pressure inside the combustion chamber will be slightly higher than the atmospheric pressure. So as soon as the exhaust valve opens, what will happen? There will be differential pressure between the combustion chamber and the exhaust manifold, and the part of the exhaust product which is going to out from the combustion chamber to the atmosphere. And the remaining portion of the product of the combustion will be flash out from the combustion chamber when the piston will move further from the bottom dead center to the top dead center, that is our exhaust stroke. When piston is about to reach at the top dead center during the exhaust stroke, then the intake valve is going to be open. So for the certain duration of the crank angle, you will find it out the both valves, intake valve and exhaust valve, are in open condition, both valves simultaneously, and that condition in which the intake and exhaust both are in open condition is called valve overlap period, in which both valves are in open condition. that is for only for certain duration. More about how the valves are open, when it opens, why it opens before the beginning of the intake stroke, or why the exhaust valve closed even before the beginning of the exhaust stroke, what is the valve overlapping period. All these things we will study in the valve timing diagram. So in that way, your spark ignition engine works. Okay. So I hope you have some question here. Any sort of question?
When does the exhaust valve close?
Yes. So exhaust valves, as I told you, that during the exhaust stroke, even when piston reaches at the bottom top dead center, your intake valve is going to be open. Okay. And then piston will again move down from the top dead center to bottom dead center. Okay. Even for certain duration of the time, the intake valve will be remain open. Sorry, exhaust valve will be remain in open condition, and it can varies. It can varies from the top dead center to around we can say 10 to 15 degree crank angle. It will be remain in the open condition. Intake valve is going to be open, maybe open from you can say 10 degree to also but top dead to 0 degree. So the valve overlapping period effectively it is going to be vary between 10 to 30 degree crank angle, we can say like that. It all depends upon the several operating condition of the engine. Okay. Anything else here? How the spark ignition 4-stroke spark ignition engine working in all the different strokes, how what are the phenomena is going on. So I hope it has to be clear at this point. If you have any doubt, any sorts of the doubt, please ask the question.
Sir,
Hmm.
so you said the fuel injector can work for around 600 degrees. That's our choice, right?
But I told that when the fuel has to be injected, it has a wide range of flexibility. You have a flexibility to inject the fuel in any time and at any time, and that time has the duration of around 650-degree crank angle. How much? So that's what I'm saying. When it has to be injected, you have a lot of flexibility.
What part of the 4 cycle thing is excluded in that? I mean, like the 720 degrees is the total crankshaft, the 4 cycles, right?
Yes.
Function, compression, ignition, and exhaust. So
Yeah.
what part of the 4 cycles is excluded? Like it's 720 degrees, and we have a choice of 600 degrees.
We have a 720-degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 4 cycles are divided 180, 720 degrees, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what part is excluded for inlet? I mean, like, yeah, gas inlet. Exhaust? Is it exhaust or inlet?
No, I'm not able to get your question. What you're saying that what portion of the crank angle is excluded?
Yeah, sir. Yeah. The out of 720 degrees, what
Yeah.
part is excluded so that we are having a flexibility of over 600 degrees.
Okay. Aha. Okay. Yeah, I got it. I got your question. Why? See, the thing is why I'm saying only the 650-degree. Why not I'm saying 720-degree crank angle? Okay, that's fine. I got your question. See, the thing is what part? Suppose um someone is going to what I have excluded, probably I have excluded the half portion of the intake stroke. Half portion of the intake stroke. Let's suppose if someone is going to start the fuel injection when the intake stroke is something like here, and there might be possibility that the duration of the fuel injection is larger than the remaining time of the intake stroke. Then what will happen? Not all the fuel is going to be injected that is required for that particular operating condition of the engine. So that is not the good situation. So your air fuel mixture is not going to be correct as per the operating condition of the engine. So therefore, I'm not taking all the 700 flexibility of 720-degree crank angle. Therefore I also made it the 650-degree crank angle. It is just, I'm saying, a approximated value. It all depends that how much the fuel injection duration, okay, is that it also going to depend. So I have excluded only the part of the end of intake stroke.
Okay, yeah, sir. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, very good. But in the gasoline engine, as I told you, the fuel injection timing or fuel injection takes place in the beginning, during the exhaust stroke and the part of the intake stroke. But if it is a gaseous fuel injection like CNG, then the CNG it is gaseous fuel, and that has very sensitive. It has a sensitive fuel injection timing is sensitive to your power output. It has some limitation, or it has some effect. So we have to be very careful. And this parameter, when we have to inject, as I told you, it is optimization parameter. We have to optimize when it is going to be. Company is not going to divulge such kind of the information.
Does the
Okay.
exhaust gas mix with the air fuel mixture?
Oh, you are asking during the valve overlap period?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Still that, therefore I told you that at this point you just accept that there is a certain period of the overlap, because why it is open before that, how the exhaust is going to mix with the air fuel mixture, everything we will discuss it during the valve overlapping, valve timing diagram. So if I will explain it this part, then I need to explain so many things, and then we can deviate from right now here. So that informations I would request you to hold it. I will cover it into the valve overlap, valve timing diagram. That is going to be immediately after that, this discussion. Most probably next class or next to next class. So now whenever you are driving your two-wheeler or four-wheeler, think about that. When I'm pressing the accelerator, what is happening? Okay. Can I identify if it is single, if you're driving the two-wheeler engine, okay? Can I identify the power stroke? It's really very difficult to identify because it is so fast and there is a noise that you cannot say. But yes, that sometimes think about the sound of the engine. That what I'm saying, that realize the sound, hear the sound of the engine, and think about it, what is going inside the combustion chamber. That is really, if that feeling, it has to become now whenever you are driving any internal combustion engine or vehicle or two-wheeler. Okay, so still I'm going very slowly, but yeah, that's fine. And at this time, it is okay. Any question here? Because now we are almost touching the time.